Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome, everyone, to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
And I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
Thanks, as always, for tuning into another show. This week, we have got undefeated two-division world champion Demetrius Andrade joining us. Plus, of course, we're going to recap last Saturday's big card and Frank Martin's breakout performance. And in this week's toe-to-toe segment, Mike and I will list our 5 favorite fights of 2022. So a lot to go over. Without further ado, let's jump right into the week in review. Last Saturday at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, in a SHOWTIME triple header headliner, Frank the Ghost Martin. Boy, did he show out. Dominated, winning a 12-round unanimous decision over the previously undefeated Michelle Rivera. It was a WBA lightweight title eliminator that a lot of people thought was a 50-50 bout going in, but that was not the case once the first bell rang. Mike, what did you think of Martin's performance?
I thought it was brilliant. I don't want to overreact because Rivera is still a developing fighter, in my opinion, but Martin just owned him from the opening bell. The thing that struck me the most was his physical superiority. He was just way too fast for Rivera to start with. And his technique was just so tight. He picked Rivera apart so efficiently without getting hit. He barely got hit himself, which is sort of what it's all about, isn't it? Rivera's a really good boxer, and he averaged only 5.6 punches landed per round, according to CompuBox. I was going to say that's something. It's nothing. 5.6 punches a round is nothing. It was really a special performance by Martin. Yeah,
I'm actually surprised that Rivera averaged so many punches. As low as the number as it is, it looked that much worse. Watching it seemed like he couldn't land, anything. Were you surprised at how dominant Martin was?
Well, seeing that I picked Rivera to win the fight, which, makes it clear that I'm going to lose the race between me and you in our predictions, I would say, yes, I was surprised. I thought it was an evenly matched fight, obviously. I think the odds makers did too. I think the odds were pretty close. I saw Rivera as an exceptional talent. I still think he's talented. Martin's just better. There's just no doubt now. Again, the thing that really stood out was his physical superiority. I just didn't see that coming. This is boxing, though, right? You never know what's going to happen when a fighter steps up in opposition. He generally either sinks or swims, and Martin swam big time, and Rivera sort of sunk, at least in this fight.
You think there's anything that Rivera could have done to change the outcome?
I think Rivera would have had to fight out of character to make the fight competitive. He couldn't box with Martin because of Martin's speed and the skill set that I mentioned. He would have had to really take the fight to Martin, fight with sort of reckless abandon in the second half of the fight, which I think his trainer was pushing him to do to some degree. I just don't think he would or could do that. I'm not sure he knows how to fight that way. Or I imagine he would have done so on Saturday. I'm sure that's something that he and his team will discuss going forward, but I just didn't see a path. Halfway through the fight, I didn't see a path to victory for him, unless he just went crazy and hurt him.
Yeah, I didn't see a path to victory for him after the first round. It was that Martin was faster, more athletic, stronger, better footwork, determined, focused. It just seemed like he had every advantage. So after that first round, I was like, man, it's going to take a home run of a right hand for Rivera to win this fight. I don't think there's anything he could have done either. I saw some people saying, well, he was moving to his right a lot, and he, gets a southpaw, you're supposed to move to your left, and that's true, but I remember Roy Jones fought about 9 southpaws, and he moved to the right against all 9 of them.
Rivera's not Roy Jones. Yeah. I was waiting for him. Honestly, I was sort of waiting for him to adjust, to do something, even from a boxing standpoint. He just never did it. He kind of kept doing the same thing, and we kept getting the same result.
Yeah, he kept going back to that. I did see instances where he tried to adjust, like where he tried to go to his left or he tried to be aggressive. But I just think that Martin was just so well prepared for anything he did that, you could see the fight leaving Rivera, as the rounds went on. And not saying he certainly didn't quit. He never stopped trying, but you could see how discouraged he was. Where does Rivera go from here?
Well, I want to be clear. He's still young. He's only 24 years old. So that was a bad loss, the kind of, that can damage your confidence depending on who the guy is. Again, though, I think he's going to learn from this, and I think he's going to bounce back. He's too talented. He's too young. I would definitely take a step back in terms of opposition, face someone who isn't a legitimate threat to him in his next fight, maybe 2 fights, and then start thinking about getting back into the title mix or contender mix. I'll say this. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Rivera in another big fight, another important fight in 2024, early 2024.
Yeah, I saw some interview he did where he said, I don't ever get used to this feeling. This
good. That's a good thing to say.
Yeah, it's a great outlook. I think that, again, like you said, he's young. He can work his way back up. No need to rush. Do what you got to do. Bottom line, just take those steps to work your way back up. And like you, I think that we'll see him in big fights. Speaking of big fights, is Frank Martin ready for the elite at 135?
I think he is. Again, he didn't beat one of the top 135 pounders on Saturday, but he beat a talented 135 pounder. So we have to be careful how we judge him. That said, I believe that kind of performance by Martin against a good young opponent, again, demonstrated that he's a threat to anyone. I'm not saying he would beat everyone, but I think he's a threat to anyone. He definitely has the physical tools. I think that couldn't be more clear. His ability was obvious to me. And on top of that, he was just so calm and cool and efficient, like a guy who'd been in that position dozens of times. That also really impressed me. I guess if I had a question about Martin, it would be in reference to his power. So he put Rivera down in round 7, and I think Rivera was pretty beat up by the end of the fight, but I don't recall Martin ever really seriously hurting him with any single shot. We'll see if that's accurate. Maybe he's got more power than I realize. And we'll also see whether that's a factor going forward.
Yeah. I think that everything you just said makes him ready for the elite. So I agree with you. One thing I want to mention, a lot of the things that, you point out, I think credit goes to Derek James. Martin's preparation, the way they had broken Rivera's style down. He was so clearly prepared for everything. His determination, his conditioning. He looked fresh in the 12th round, all speaks to a great camp. And the in the ring instructions that James was giving him round after round, they were, practical instructions, go to the left, he's ducking over here, you do this, you do that, things that a fighter could easily do in the ring, not just throw more punches or, you got to be busy. I thought was great,
Also, being around Spence probably didn't hurt either.
Yeah, exactly. Being around that sort of pedigree. He came out and he looked like a fighter who was, ready for a world title fight, from the opening bell. So, kudos to Frank Martin. Who do you want to see him fight next?
Well, if they left it up to me, I would say he'd fight Gervonta Davis, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, Vasily Lomachenko, those guys. That's not going to happen right away. Obviously, those guys are busy for the moment. I think a good opponent for him would be one that he called out after his victory, Rolly Romero. Yeah. He's a bigger name guy who's been in big fights. That would be another step up for Martin, but not a huge step up, which would be good for him, I think, in his own development. I think that matchup would better prepare him for when the opportunity does come to fight the Davises and the Haneys and those guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like that fight. I like that he called out Romero. I know Romero's talked about moving up to 140, but I think if he stays at 135, it's a good fight. I also like Isaac Cruz for that's a great style.
Matchup of styles. Yeah.
And I tell you what, whoever wins that fight has absolutely earned a shot at Tank Davis. So again, much props to Frank Martin. I think that he really put a fitting bow on the year with that sort of breakout performance, and gave everyone, something to be excited about going into 2022.
I'm
excited, yeah, and I'm sure you were as well. Let's go into the co-feature. Super middleweight IBF title eliminator Jose Uzcategui versus Vladimir Shishkin. Shishkin was a competitive fight, I feel like, but Shishkin controlled most of the action. Won a clear, unanimous decision, deservedly so. What'd you make of how he looked?
I thought it was a strong performance. He's obviously knows what he's doing. He's a good boxer, which we saw on Saturday. But I thought he sort of beat Uzcategui at his own game in a way. He stood and exchanged with him a lot. And Uzcategui's a strong, really strong, tough guy he also has ability. And I thought Shishkin just got the better of him. I was really impressed with him. I thought Shishkin probably got hit a little too much. But that was the price he was willing to pay for an important victory. He also faded down the stretch a little bit. Maybe give Uzcategui some credit there. Maybe he needs to pace himself a little bit better. I don't know. But bottom line for me, I think this guy's now a player in the division. He's one tough dude.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it was his first 12 rounders, so I understood him fading a little bit, but he did. It was considerable. So I do think that that's something that he needs to work on. But you make a good point regarding him beating Uzcategui at his own game, because, I remember like midway through the fight, like Uzcategui was landing those right hands, and I was like, man, if he keeps landing this guy's going to go. And Shishkin took everything he had, even when he was fatigued, and he gave it right back each time. And then it became a question of, well, how long can Uzcategui stand up and take these kind of shots? Kudos to both of them, but certainly a standout performance for Shishkin. I think he proved that he's in the upper echelon at 168. Is Uzcategui still a player in the super middleweight division?
I don't know. I guess he performed well enough to be a legitimate opponent for another up-and-coming guy, maybe an interim opponent for a contender, that kind of opponent. I like the way he came on later in the later rounds. I think he'd have to win a few fights and look good doing it to sort of rise again to become a legitimate contender. But the guy's a solid boxer, and I think he showed again how tough he is. He ballooned up in weight. He fought at cruiserweight in his last fight, so I wondered about that, but that didn't seem to be a factor. He was strong down the stretch. That told you something about his conditioning. I wouldn't be shocked to see him rise again. I'm just not sure it's going to happen. We'll see.
Yeah, I think he looked like, he certainly not in the upper echelon at 168, but someone who is top 10, maybe in the lower portion of the top 10. I thought that was a surprisingly good performance. I didn't know what to expect from him on Saturday, given everything that's transpired over these past couple of years. And he went out there and he gave it a good fight. I just think that Shishkin is a very good fighter. Who would you like to see Shishkin face next?
Well, it was sort of like a breakthrough victory for him too. And I think he's probably ready for a top 5 168 pounder, whoever that might be. Obviously he'd like Canelo. Everybody still wants Canelo because of the exposure and the money, right?
Right.
I'm not sure Canelo's going to fight Shishkin though, at least not anytime soon. So maybe a Daniel Jacobs would be a good opponent for him. Although at this stage, maybe Jacobs only wants top guys. I don't know. I don't know if this will sound weird, but maybe he fights the loser of Plant Benavidez, which would still be a big fight for Shishkin. Something along those lines. I think he's ready for that level guy, but I think he might have to wait a little bit to get really get the biggest fights that he wants.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, most of these guys are tied up. I don't know if he can beat those guys, but I certainly think that he's earned the opportunity to face them. Now, in the TV opener, Vincent Astrolabio stopped Nikolai Potapov in an IBF bantamweight eliminator. Astrolabio now in line for Naoya Inoue's IBF title. We'll see what transpires with that. But the real big news, obviously, is that in the prediction,
here we go,
2022, my record stands at a sparkling 59-1. Mike's at a journeyman 47-12. and won.
I'm gonna go back to the gym and talk to my trainer about what I did wrong, and come back stronger than ever in 2023.
I want to thank God, Al Heyman, not necessarily in that order. You know, no,
I'm going to thank them too for a good year.
You know, it's it's certainly been a fun year, I think, this year in the Prediction League. And you know, I look forward next year. There are gonna be so many great fights. So I look forward to restarting the clock and seeing where this goes. But overall, not bad records, you know, all things considered.
I think we did pretty well, actually.
Yeah, if we're gambling men, you know, we'd be doing all right, you know. Anyway, enough of that. We've got a great guest coming in right now. He is former 2-division world champion, remains undefeated. You'll see him Saturday, January 7th against Demond Nicholson on SHOWTIME Pay-Per-View at Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. The one and only Demetrius Andrade. Demetrius, January 7th, you face Demond Nicholson on SHOWTIME Pay-Per-View at the Capital One Arena in D.C. It's a big show, big crowd. You got billboards in Times Square. How does it feel?
Yeah, it feels great to, you know, get back in the ring, especially on a card like this of many different talents in all different weight classes in a sense. Just, you know, just ready to put on for the people and myself, first and foremost, and the Most High giving me the opportunity and the talent to, you know, display.
What can you tell us about your opponent, Demond Nicholson?
I mean, you know, I haven't really studied him fully yet. Let my team do their thing. But as far as his person, he seems like he's alive, capable, willing, able, and comes in great shape and wants to prove that he is, you know, good. And so he took this fight with no hesitation, and so we're here. So, you know, my hat goes off to him. Hope he has a great camp and he's safe, no injuries, and we can get this show going.
Demetrius, you haven't fought in over a year. What have you been doing during that time to avoid the ring rust, or do you even believe in ring rust?
No, of course, it's ring rust as far as your timing and then, you know, being under the lights and, you know, people and all that other stuff. You know, if you don't have experience or understand the mindset you have to be in, yeah, that can take a big part. I've been off longer than this, you know, but a lot younger. You know, I'm still frisky and just ready to get in there and make it happen. So, I mean, it's all good. At the end of the day, I'm preserving my body. I'm going through what I need to go through to keep it strong, fast, and mentally stay with my wits. And so, yeah, it's all good.
We hear you've been training out in Massachusetts with Speedy Rashidi Ellis. Now, both of you are on the same card. How cool is that?
No, yeah, me and Rashidi been sparring and being in the same gym for years, man, for years, all over. I always bring him in because, you know, he's definitely somebody to keep me fast, young, and on my toes because he is fast. Fast! And I can't wait to see him January 7th do his thing in this and what the future holds for him.
What can you tell us about what you see from Rashidi from a game recognized game perspective? How would you assess him?
Oh, no, he definitely got that fire within him. You know, the fire to go out there and do whatever he has to do under any circumstances. That's what I like to see in people. You know, you can be down, you can whatever, boom, but if you got that fire, that's going to keep you up, and you're going to figure out how to use your mind to overcome the outcome of those, you know, situations, man. And he has that. And so that's what about him as far as himself, and then you bring in the skills and the speed on top of that. So it's going to be a lot of layers to break when it comes to him.
Now, for you, this is your first fight at 168. What made you decide to move up? Was it becoming more increasingly difficult to make the 160-pound limit, or was the next challenge for you at a higher weight class?
Yeah, both. You know, making 160 is getting tough. I've been doing 54 for years, 60 for a few years now, and just, you know, after a while, you're just making weight and not fighting the type of fighters and the people that I should be getting in with. It becomes frustrating and it becomes a little stressful to the body because your mind is like, okay, who am I fighting? A Janabek guy for what? You know what I'm saying? Versus like, I should be fighting the Charlo. Now moving up to the 68, there's a lot more characters that I believe that would be willing to take the fight with me because they probably feel like they're going to be bigger, stronger, or whatever. And so, therefore, I think that's the better challenge, and the challenges that would be made up there, and they would accept it. So we'll find out too sooner or later if no more network. I'm over here, I'm over there. Do you want to fight Andrade? Yes or no? Everything leads towards him at the end of the day when it comes to like, have you fought the best? And the same thing for me. For me to claim that, I have to go this route. So these are the routes that I'm taking, the risky routes, of course.
So that leads me to my question. So you shared your last platform with a lot of big name guys, including Canelo Alvarez. None of the fights happened, even though you called these guys out. In your mind, was this a case of them avoiding you? Did business get in the way? Was it something else?
Yeah, I think it's just being avoided at this point, because when you're both on the same network, the same promoter, the same head honcho of the zone helping make the decisions. It's all about, I don't know, it could be save your investment. It could be a lot of things. Oh, Triple G got stocks in this shit, so we don't want him to lose no against his, it's a whole lot of shit, man. It's a whole lot of shit. But I did my part to try to make the best fights happen for myself, for boxing, of course, and for their platform. But it seemed like they wasn't doing it, and their target point was Charlo over there in Showtime and try to do this whole thing. And it's just like, that wasn't going to work. But now that I'm free, I'm making it work myself. So
yeah, it sounds like you're looking forward, but you're looking back. Do you regret how things played out?
Now, hell no, I got paid. I was active. I was busy. Like, what the hell? Where am I? I'm 31-0, 19 knockouts. What is there to regret? Tall and black and handsome. I can talk well still. I ain't got no too much bumps and bruises. I'm chilling.
Good.
It's in looking back, do you ever think that things might have been different if you and the Billy Joe Saunders fight had gone through?
Yeah, of course. Definitely would have maybe helped with maybe getting in the ring with Triple G, maybe helping get in the ring with Jaime Munguia, them guys, of course, or whatever was on the zone side, because now I just beat somewhat of a name. I don't want to say he's the marquee name. I just say he's a name. I don't think Billy Joe is the best, but they moved him well as well too. So I would have beat him up, trashed him, sent him home, and he would never got any of that stuff. But good thing it didn't happen, because I do like the kid, and I'm glad he ended up getting the Canelo fight to take care of him and his family, hopefully. But you see what came out of that though, man? He's fat. He was like this. He's not in shape. That's the type of stuff you guys Canelo's choosing that type of behavior, man. If I'm professional, man. I'm 100. That shit would never happen towards me, bro. Come on.
You said something earlier about the whole, it was like you were on one platform, but they were fight Jermall Charlo, but never really anyone on your own platform. There weren't calls out for guys like Jaime Munguia or Triple G or Canelo and so forth. Do you feel some type of way about that? I mean,
yeah, of course I did. I would tell the whoever Chris Maddox. I would tell everybody why are you trying to promote that when Jaime Munguia fights O'Sullivan? And you're like, what are you doing, Triple G? What are you talking about? Yeah, you gotta get in line. The hell? Why are you not mentioning Andrade then? Why you only mention me when it's Charlo? And it's bro, that's not even in our arm's reach right now. We're here, and you guys are doing all that shit. How you think I'm gonna feel? You're favoring that, then you're favoring this. So of course I'm gonna come at it and come at them a certain way. Do I do it publicly all the time? Nah, I'm not here to embarrass anybody, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I have done it too. When it's fighting meetings, I will let them know, why you guys keep doing that? But that's over and done, said, moved on, But I don't hear them now. I be watching them, Chris Maddox, why ain't you on the thing? Oh, God, we got Andre's over. We can, where's, you know what I'm saying? Keep that hype shit going on since I'm over here now, and hopefully we can make them things happen. Let's see.
Speaking about being at PBC. So folks have been saying for a long time you'd be a good fit for PBC. What made you decide to make the move right now?
Now, I mean, timing's everything, and timing is everything. You know, so you don't know every timing, but you know when the time is right. Should I say, the time is right for me to go up to 168 and go over there to Showtime, because at the end of the day, those are where the capitals are. Those is where the big fights are for me, and I believe, you know, they can push them guys to make the fights happen versus when the others, wherever else I was.
So what's your plan now for the future? You mentioned being a free agent. Do you plan to stay a free agent? You're going to move around as far as networks, or do you plan to stay at PBC and go through some of, you know, these big dogs that PBC has?
No, of course I would like to stay and, you know, do my Tom Brady thing, stay with, you know, the Patriots for as long as I can, you know what I'm saying? As far as Showtime, I would like to stay with them for as long as I can, you know? But if things doesn't escalate and put me in of course I have to go and, you know what I mean, move around and see what the best situation is for me, because at the end of the day, that's what I gotta do. I gotta look out for myself as well. But I know it's best to just, you know, kind of stay in with one platform than to pop around all over the place. You know, nobody likes a jeweler. Nobody likes to go to and have the jeweler. Don't like when you're going to 5 different jewelers on the same street. It's pretty much what I'm trying to say. You know, we're gonna make a relationship. Let's make a relationship and let's figure this thing out together.
Now, I know you're gonna say any and all of them, but everyone loves lists. So, who are the top 3 or 4 guys in order that you want to face?
I mean, there's only really. I mean, of course I wanted Canelo. Of course I wanted Triple G. Of course I wanted Billy Joe. I wanted all these guys. But right now, today, market is Charlo. That's it. Today's market is Charlo, bro. Like, anybody else, if, like, we can't, like, that's what I'm campaigning for. That's it. That's just what it is. It only makes sense, bro. It only makes sense. There's nothing else. 2, 3 is like, I don't know what happens. You know, people can get hurt, people get hit. I don't know, timing, people, whatever. But Charlo and me, we have a rivalry, we have history. Like I said before, if Plant and David Benavidez can come to terms and make it happen with their disliking each other or not liking, whichever, how they do or whatever, and they can like figure it out and put it to the ring and make it worth their pockets and their bank, then we can do the same thing. I'm just saying. We get. I don't hear nobody else shout over there like, I'll fight Andrade, I'll fight Chris Eubank. No, but you and me. That's it. Just make these fights happen, bro. That's it.
Fans would love that fight. You know, it's
I want to be done watching that shit, eat my popcorn like, damn, you see that shit I hit him with? Sheesh. We got left hand. Oh, no.
You know, it's crazy how time flies. Like, it seems like yesterday to me. I remember talking to your father, and he was like, you know who's the best amateur right now? I didn't know he was your father then, but he was like, do you know who the best amateur is right now? I said, who? He said, this kid named Demetrius Andrade. And now you're 34 now. You're still undefeated. You've won titles in 2 divisions. Is there a sense of urgency for you to make the big fights happen?
Yeah, of course. I'm not getting any younger. You know, time, you know, goes by fast, man. Fast. Like you just mentioned, fast, yo. Like, and this world, you just never know what's going to happen. So, like, I want to do what I can before anything ever happens and leave my family, my people at peace with what their dad, and of course, my dad did for me to be able to be here in this, with the skills, of course, that he, you know, taught me how to fight, and, you know, everything a father figure has done and did with me brought me here today, and I want to leave that for mine as well. So yeah, I gotta, you know, when you get older, you think in a way like, yo, I gotta not move fast, but you want to like get these things all, you know, your line of stream, of course, in line, so you can, you know, live a good life for you and your family. That's it.
There is a big Cape Verdean population in the Northeast. Great food, by the way. What does it mean to you to represent people of Cape Verdean descent?
Now, so Capo Verde is how you pronounce it, you know, on the island of Cape Verde. There's many islands. I mean, so it's just beautiful people, man. A beautiful place to go, man. Just whenever you guys have a chance and be out there listening, just go and try to take a trip there, and it'll be an eye opener. So from the diaspora, we're all over the place. We're in London, Amsterdam, Netherlands. We're all over. Yes, there's a big population, more recognized in New England area. Yes, we have great food, fresh. The men like myself, good looking. The ladies, phenomenal. Yeah, man, and it's great to be able to represent a country that really isn't representative in the way I am because of the sport that I am and who I am. You can't just play NBA basketball and be like, I'm Cape Verdean. You can't run out with a flag. Can't do that for NFL, any other really sports like that, unless it's like a national country sport like soccer. So I take that as a privilege and an honor to be able to give, my family, for my dad and my grandma and my grandpa, the respect they deserve by letting them know I said thank you by raising that flag for them.
Very good. As we mentioned, you're 34 now. How have things changed in the gym, if at all? Are you still training the way you did like when you were 24, say? And what adjustments have you had to make or maybe haven't needed to make?
Oh, hell no. I was 24. I used to run 60-pound vest on, running up down freaking Brown Stadium in Rhode Island, Brown Stadium, Brown College. Brown University, pushing minivans for miles. Shit, nah, man, my shit's hurting now. But now, with technology and plyometrics and the type of training that has advanced, people and athletes. Yeah, I'm sort of in that form now, and just working smarter than harder, but also put my mind and body through the stressfulness that it needs to be to overcome a situation if I'm ever put in.
Do you feel you'll have more power at 168? I mean, you were big here at 54, at 62, but obviously, 168, there's a concentration of power punches over there. How do you feel your power will carry up to that division?
Yeah, we're going to find out come January 7th, tuned in, because I'm looking to hit hard and fast and hard. And then, do what I do best. And that's not get hit, of course. Yes, I'm a boxer that knows how to fight, and fighting is in me. But if I need to, I can do the whole boxing thing. But I'm looking to, feel like I want to feel during camp and training and not, exhaust myself. And then at the younger age, you could keep doing it, but exhaust myself and then fight the next day. That takes a toll, So I believe the 8 pounds is a big difference, and it's going to feel a big difference for me as well. I know it's a big difference. There's big guys up there, but I'm big myself, and I can handle my own. So I made the best man win. I'm in it to win it. Well, I'm in it to, take the risk. If that's what it is for me to be high risk, high reward. So that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
You've done a pretty good job winning so far. So I'll leave you with this last question. January 7th it's sort of like a rejuvenation for you, like a new chapter, if you will. With that in mind, what kind of statement are you looking to make that night?
Yeah, I'm a humble guy. I'm cool. I'm not a humble guy. I'm saying I'm cool, chilling. I'm respectful for everybody that step into the ring, especially with me. But I'm fucking knocking motherfuckers out. That's what I'm coming to do. I'm sitting here. I'm hitting boys hard. I'm going to do what it needs to do. I'm putting boys out. That's what I'm coming to do. That's what I'm going to do. I'm putting on a show, of course. Give the fans what they need and what they want to say. We want more of Andrade. And so, yeah.
We're looking forward to it, Demetrius. Thank you so much for your time. All the best to you. We'll see you on January 7th.
Yeah, thank you. God bless you too. Happy holidays, yo.
4 straight sellouts. Yeah, 3 division championships.
Lethal left uppercut!
The one and only Gervonta Tank Davis puts his perfect record on the line against one of the fastest rising boxers in the sport. Unbeaten Hector Luis Garcia, plus knockout artist Jaron Boots Ennis. Tank Davis versus Hector Luis Garcia, Saturday, January 7th, live on pay-per-view.
It's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe. And this week, we are going to choose our personal top 5 PBC fights of the year. So many to choose from. And I'm really curious to see if there's any overlap, whether we agree. And I'm sure there will be.
Surprised if there isn't. There's got to be at least one.
But there's got to be a surprise or two as well. So
no question.
We'll see how that goes. Let's start with number 5.
Just real quick, I wanted to preface this, at least from my perspective. I didn't care necessarily whether the fight was a really great competitive fight or anything like that. For me, there was just something about it that I really liked, enjoyed watching it, something about it that stood out for me. So the first one is very fresh in my memory, Frank Martin versus Michel Rivera. Excuse me. I had a lot of respect for Martin going into the fight. He obviously has ability. He's trained by Derek James, as you mentioned. He's got a great work ethic from everything I can tell. And I really like the way he carries himself on top of everything else. All that said, I still wasn't 100% sure he had the goods, at least at the very highest level. Now I'm pretty sure. I'm watching that performance, against a good opponent. And I just remember thinking, wow, I'm really watching something special right now, special talent, a guy with the potential to do great things. And I very rarely have that thought about anyone when I'm watching a fight. So that's what made that fight so enjoyable for me to watch. I love witnessing that kind of talent. And the best thing about it is that Martin's just getting started. I can't wait to see how far this guy goes.
Yeah. And what's crazy is that division is full of guys with special talent. Yep. which means that once they start fighting each other, I mean, we could get a hodgepodge of different outcomes and maybe we're in an era where guys aren't afraid to lose their own, as long as we get great fights and winners fight winners, losers fight losers, and mix a match. Anything could happen. I mean, I could see one person beating another person, but can't beat that guy. And that person maybe could beat this guy and can't beat that. I mean, it's just great. And Frank Martin certainly put his name up there. I'm pumped to see how he looks in 2023, who he does it against next. My number 5 is Danny Garcia versus Jose Benavidez Jr. Absolutely one of my favorite fights of 2023. I mean, Garcia hadn't fought in like a year and a half. He was going up to 154 to face Benavidez, who was at 159 the last time he fought. But my main thing was, was Danny Garcia still hungry? First of all, he was coming off that loss to Errol Spence, which had to have been deflating for him. He's made a ton of money over the course of his career, and he's made a ton of wise investments. So I'm just wondering, does he still have that hunger that he had 10 years ago? And he's going up against a determined fighter who's overcome a lot, who wants everything that Danny Garcia has. But look, Garcia was masterful. I mean, he just outboxed Benavidez, was dominant, really, and looked like he was having fun in there. I'm not sure how it was only a majority decision for him, but then against Mayweather, Canelo was a majority decision. You just never know in this sport. Afterward, Garcia broke down and he was really candid about his struggles with mental health. It just goes to show you never know what a man is really going through. I'm looking at him thinking, well, he has everything. Can he get gain the hunger to become world champion once more? And we saw, some of the things that he was fighting. So I salute Danny Garcia. It's great to have him back, and hopefully he returns a little quicker next time.
Yeah, I like that choice because I like Danny Garcia. Once again, I've always just thought of the guy as a winner, and I really have respect for guys like that. Talk about guys who carry themselves well out of the ring too. Yeah. And I think that I'm not surprised that he came back and looked good. I think the guy's a fighter through and through before everything else. He's a real fighter. So it's great to see him back in the ring. And I hope he gets some more big fights. And I won't put anything past this guy. He's that good. I think he might have some surprises in store for us.
Exactly. I think he reminded us all in that fight. Let's go to number 4. I'll kick this one off, and it is Stephen Fulton versus Danny Roman. To me, the most overlooked big win of 2022 took place on June 4th. And, Fulton won, obviously, a wide unanimous decision. Roman and MJ Akhmadaliev fought neck and neck. I mean, that fight could have gone either way. The decision went to Akhmadaliev. Cool. Fulton, on the other hand, makes light work of Roman. He won 35 of 36 rounds, combining the 3 judges' scorecards. I mean, by the end of the fight, he was battering Roman. Fulton has every skill in the book, and I feel like that night he showed them all. you watch that fight and you tell yourself, this is clearly one of the best fighters in the world. And that's why this fight makes my list.
So I thought of that fight for similar reasons. I still think now that Danny Roman is a really good boxer.
Yeah.
And look what Fulton did to him.
Yeah.
It shows you how good Fulton is. I felt a little bit bad for Roman because I know how good he is, and I know how good he's thinking big. He wants to do great things, and look, Fulton just outclassed him.
Yeah.
Fulton is a really special talent. That's why I hope that he gets big fights that I'm going to get really excited about. I still love the Fulton in a way matchup if that could possibly happen.
Yeah, it'd be a great fight. I think everybody loves that fight. It's a dream fight. I mean, we'll see what unfolds. I just want to see Fulton in top fights in 2023. He's got in. I'm with you. I love Roman as a boxer. I was like, man, I felt like that was a 50-50 fight going in. I will say this though. I remember Fulton's performance against Angelo Leo, and I watched him against Figueroa, and I thought obviously Figueroa gave him hell. That fight was a very close fight, but I felt like something was a little off with Fulton that night, and something was missing. And then I remember we had him on the podcast, and he kind of mentioned something like that. He mentioned that he was dealing.
I think Figueroa was what was wrong with.
Yeah, you're probably right. And shout out to Lamont Jones, by the way, because we had this conversation earlier, and he said the exact same thing that you said. But then watching Fulton against Roman, I was like, my goodness, this is the guy I saw, against Angelo Leo.
It's a good style for Fulton, right? Because nobody's going to very few people, let's put it that way. Very few people are going to outbox Fulton.
Right.
And so if you put another boxer against them, it's a really hard thing. So you almost need to fight like Figueroa to beat Fulton.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. So maybe that's, we'll see if that's his that's what causes him, further trouble, as his career continues to progress. What you got for number 4?
So number 4 is Hector Garcia versus Chris Colbert. I was trying to figure out why I liked watching this fight so much, and I finally came up with something to compare it to. I like the idea behind American Idol and X Factor, where like a nobody suddenly emerges out of nowhere to become a star. That's sort of what Garcia did in this fight. Yeah. I guess if I followed every capable fighter in the world, I would have known that Garcia is a threat to pretty much anyone, which I know now, but I didn't know that at the time. So when he essentially dismantled a guy that I have a ton of respect for, I was just like in awe of the guy. I'm watching this going, what the hell am I watching here? I couldn't believe it. It was so dramatic, and drama, in whatever form drama comes, is what makes a fight special. So Garcia got 4 stars from the judges that night. Yeah.
I mean, man, that was definitely one of those fights where even while it was like I refused to accept what was in front of me, I just couldn't make sense of it. Kind of reminded me of when Felix Trinidad fought Bernard Hopkins. I was a huge Felix Trinidad fan. It took me up until about round 7, round 8, before I realized what was going on, and in watching this fight, I was like, well, Colbert, I mean, is so talented and is so clearly better than this guy, or so I thought going in, that at some point this has got to turn around. But no, round after round, Garcia kept showing his pedigree. And you're right, if we kept also up with everyone.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, look, the guy's got the physical attributes, the size. He can box, he can bang. He's a former Olympian. He's got the pedigree, great amateur background. So it really wasn't that surprising, when you look at it that way. But obviously Colbert was considered a future star. So for something like that to happen, that was just shocking.
What I'm talking about. Yeah, it was a special night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the standout moments of 2022. Good call on that one. Who do you have for number 3?
So number 3 is about as one-sided a fight as you could possibly get. Deontay Wilder and Robert Helenius. So we didn't see the fight that I was expecting. I was really looking forward to this one because Wilder is Wilder, And I have a lot of respect for Helenius, who looked terrific in his victories over Adam Kovnatsky. I thought we would have at least some back and forth, between these guys. Well, Wilder had different ideas. He took Helenius out with just one more hellacious right hand a few seconds before the end of the first round. Listen, we all love spectacular knockouts. And I loved watching Wilder get back to doing what Wilder's been doing for so long after those setbacks against Fury, which were amazing fights for different reasons, right? He's Wilder's one of my favorite fighters to watch because of what we saw against Helenius. Just absolutely love those knockouts. Whenever this guy walks away, we're really going to miss him.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just reminded of that night. I remember after the fight, someone coming into the locker room and saying, the press is ready, to meet with you, for the post-fight press conference. And he was like, I just saved them, I just knocked this guy out in the first round. I just saved them, 11 more rounds. The least they could do is wait. And I just laughed to myself.
That's a really good observation, actually.
I just laughed to myself. He's absolutely. I mean, guaranteed to send you home early, for sure. That fight's also on my list, so I'm not going to say anything about it right now. My number 3 is Jermall Charlo versus Brian Castano, May 14th, the War Grounds, open air Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California. And to me, we witnessed one of the greatest fighters of this era, do his thing. You look at their first encounter back in 2021, it was a close draw, hotly contested draw, disputed, a lot of differing opinions as far as who won, who would win the rematch as well. We all wanted to see it, but this time Jermall stops him in 10 rounds, becomes the first ever 4-belt undisputed 154-pound champion. First of all, it was a really, really great fight. But really, I thought it was a great performance by Jermall Charlo. I watched that fight again just a few days ago, and man, he was on his game. He was cold, he was clinical, and he was calculating. He used the jab, he used movement, and he went to the body a lot during that fight. He went early and often. He really broke Castano down. Yeah, Castano landed some good shots, but one thing I realized watching it again was that Jermall slipped a lot of those shots, smothered those shots, blocked those shots, and countered, most of them as well. It was really a complete performance. I think both guys showed a warrior's heart, but Charlo showed pound for pound pedigree. Fans got their money's worth and then some. And bottom line, we all got to witness history.
So I'm just going to jump to my number 2, which is Jermall Charlo versus Brian Castano 2. I think one thing about Charlo that's emerging is that you don't want to fight him a second time. He lost that decision to Tony Harrison in 2018, and he knocked him out in the rematch. He drew with Castano last year in what I thought was a legitimately even fight. A fight that I thought could have gone either way. The rematch, it was a fun fight to watch, but I think that it was controlled by Charlo pretty much from the outset. Charlo just took charge. He outboxed Castano and he broke him down, as you mentioned, and then he knocked him out, in spectacular fashion in the 10th round. I just love the way that Charlo said with his actions, I'm going to show you the first fight was a fluke, that I'm the great fighter.
Yeah.
And that's what he did, in the ring. I was just so impressed with him that night. I already thought of him as one of the best in the business going into that fight, but that performance just made it even more clear to me that this guy's one of the best going right now.
Yeah, a great point regarding not fighting him twice. He's this generation's Azuma Nelson. That's who he is. You know what?
That's a good. If you're comparing him to Nelson, that's a compliment.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and someone who was very good in rematches, someone who you didn't want to face a second time around. I think, it's unbelievable what Charlo has done up until this point. I mean, again, this guy made his debut on a Joe Calzaghe undercard. That's how long he's been doing it. And you look at the list of opponents that he beat as a prospect and as a contender, beating other top prospects and other contenders. He really had to fight his way to get here. Vanes Martirosyan, Dennis Douglin, Demetrius Hopkins, a slew of other names that I'm probably forgetting. I mean, top guy beat Gabe Rosado, coming up, so many guys before he became a world champion. Then you look at who he's beaten afterwards. I really think he's had an amazing career, and one of those guys too that probably is being appreciated now at this latter, not latter, but at this portion of his career more so than when he was doing it when he was younger. Now, my number 2 is Wilder versus Helenius, October 15th at my favorite venue, the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. And look, Brooklyn is home of great culture, Biggie Smalls, Big Daddy Kane, some guy named Jay-Z, but it's also the second home of the Bronze Bomber, Deontay Wilder. I mean, he's had so many spectacular performances there. He's coming off that epic trilogy with Tyson Fury. There are a lot of folks that thought he might retire. Even he pondered it. And then you brought up the run that Helenius was on. I mean, he stopped Konofsky twice. There were a lot of questions surrounding Wilder going into this fight, but the more things change, one round, one right hand, and that was all she wrote. The Big Apple crowd loved it. It put Wilder right back where he belongs, which is among the elite in the heavyweight division. And I'm eager to see what he does next.
The thing about that punch too is, I don't think that was really Helenius of Wilder's best punch. That shows you how hard the guy punches. Yeah. Even if it's not his best punch, he still renders you unconscious. I mean, that guy's power, and especially given his weight, that guy's power is just, I know I use this term a lot, but it's completely off the charts. It's just crazy.
Yeah. It's interesting though, is I'm really glad. One thing about that punch, and I saw the highlights a few days ago, was that, if you blinked, you missed it. That's how fast his hands are. I mean, his athleticism, even at this stage of his career, is also off the charts. And so you've got good power in that hand, and then you deliver it with the speed.
That's part of the power, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm kind of glad that he got back down in weight, instead of staying at 230 or 240, where, he had power, but I felt like he was not as fast as he was, and his right hand was a little more telegraphed. I think that in, the lower weights, maybe he gets pushed around more. Who knows? Although, in that early part of the fight, he did show pretty good movement. And maybe that's kind of what he's going to do going forward. But if you can throw that right hand with that velocity, it's going to find its target, and a lot of guys are going to fall. So
if I could have one wish, it would be to see him fight one time at cruiserweight. And again, I think he could make 200 pounds if he wanted to.
A crime would be committed that night. Yeah, I don't know if I want to see
it sanctioned.
Exactly. Let's get to number 1. Should I go or should you go?
Go for it.
All right. My number 1 took place April 16th. Errol Spence versus your Dennis Ugas at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Was an electric night. I was really happy I was there. 40,000 people in attendance, most there to see, Errol make his long-awaited return to the ring. I mean, the man had gone through so much. First was the car accident, after, the Sean Porter fight that sidelined him, and you wondered if he'd ever fight again. And then he comes back and he outpoints Danny Garcia. And it's like, well, Errol's back, and then he gets the Manny Pacquiao fight and then suffers the retina injury. And once again, he's sidelined. So it became a question of, does this guy have anything left? But man, when that Southside the Realest song blared over the speakers, and it seemed like every one of those 40,000 people knew the words to the song. I had never heard the song before in my life, but apparently it was a huge local hit song in Dallas. I actually downloaded it afterward. But when they started reciting it word for word and Errol made his way to the ring, it was just crazily, definitely one of those you had to be there, sort of moments. And then Errol goes out there and it looks like he hasn't lost a step. Matter of fact, he might have looked better than ever, in that fight. He just manhandled Ugas. And even when Ugas had that moment in the 6th round when Spence's mouthpiece fell out, Errol just took it to another level, after that. Injured Ugas's eye, his nose, his ribs, stopped him in 10 rounds to become an undefeated, 3-belt world champion at welterweight, the original 3. So no question, this was my favorite fight of the year.
So I guess that would have been my number 6. So I was going back and forth with Spencer. I think the reason that I didn't choose it was because I guess I assumed he was okay physically. I guess I believed him when he said he was. And so I was pretty sure that he was going to do what he ended up doing.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for Ugas. I mean, to beat Pacquiao, even that Pacquiao of that age, I think was really impressive. But I just think that Spence is at a higher level. Spence is at a higher level than almost everybody in boxing. So I sort of knew what was going to happen, but I really enjoyed that fight. But I would enjoy watching Spence fight anybody.
Yeah, I'm just going to see who your number one is.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. So number one to me was actually pretty easy. We haven't really mentioned, I guess, either one of these guys, but it was Sebastian Fundora and Erickson Lubin.
Yeah.
I just absolutely loved this fight. First, both guys are fun to watch under any circumstances. Fundora with that height and then the incongruous fighting style that makes no sense because of his height. Just makes him so entertaining. And Lubin is just a warrior, man. The guy comes to fight every time he steps into the ring. So they're like two of my favorite guys to watch under any circumstances. And then you pitted them against each other. It certainly didn't disappoint me. The fight had like ebbs and flows, which I think are necessary to create a classic fight, which I think this was. Lubin went down in the second round, but he rallied back. Excuse me again. He rallied back to force Fundora to take a knee in round 7. At which point I didn't know how much longer Fundora would last. I thought he might get knocked out at that point. Then he collected himself and he stormed back and he finally took Lubin out in round 9. I'm just like on the edge of my chair going, holy crap, this is just so much fun. Honestly, it's one of my favorite fights in recent years, not just in 2022. It was just a blast.
Yeah. And I think it makes sense that your favorite fight of the year was probably the fight of the year. I mean, that was just a great fight. And it also stamped Fundora as a serious contender to Jermall Charlo's crown. That's
another element to it, is that it was a really important win too, on top of everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
But by doing that to Lubin, I mean, that was really impressive. This is a Lubin who I think has improved, who had been in there fighting top opponent.
I picked Lubin to win, I think. I picked him to win.
I think most people did. I don't remember.
I don't either.
Who I picked to win. I probably picked Fundora.
Maybe that's one that I lost. I don't know. At any rate.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Lubin, I think Lubin was the favorite. Coming in, he had fought so many top opponents, one right after the other, earned his shot. And so, coming in against Fundora, who hadn't quite fought the level of opposition that he had, certainly hadn't beaten the level of opposition he had, Lubin would rightly be the favorite. So for Fundora to go out there and do what he did was really impressive. And again, props to Lubin as well, because he gave as good as he got for a lot of that fight. And
brought his heart out.
Yeah, he certainly did. Showed his warrior's heart as well. And I like to see him back soon. But yeah, I'd say that was a pretty good choice.
Now we get to look forward to more good fights.
Yeah, absolutely, in 2023. And that is going to do it for this week's episode. We want to thank Demetrius Andrade for joining us. And of course, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to check us out next week for our year-end awards right here on the PBC Podcast.